You may be asking yourself, what is Trek After Dark? Well, Bill and I had to go back into the archives, resurrect this show, because it's one of our goals. 2018 to kind of bring back Trek After Dark. Bill, what is Trek After Dark? If that's even possible. Yeah. Oh.
Oh.
There we go. Now do that again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Should be able
right,
to.
Cool.
You were just too low.
Trek After Dark is the more casual version of Trek Live. It's the laid back, relaxed, even more than usual version of what we kind of already do. Not real formatted, very, very, like I said, casual conversation. Trek Live every week, we typically have like a topic of the week that we allow to kind of drive the conversation and keep it going on a track. We have a thing that we have to talk about. And on Trek After Dark, when we come on to do this, we're going to try to keep it more of like a hangout. Dan and I do these kind of privately, just catching up, talking about whatever. And this is going to be us kind of just doing that and throwing it out there for people to join in and participate in the conversation. We're going to try to do this maybe a couple times a month, maybe some months, maybe once a month, depending on what we have going on schedule-wise. But it's a good place to talk about things like Discovery news, which we're going to talk about tonight. I know Dan and I have not really touched base on this because we like to try to keep some of this stuff fresh for when we do these. Yeah. And there's been a lot of that in the last couple of weeks. So we're definitely going to talk about that, but we're open to really anything. We're not married to any idea for what we have to talk about. So if anybody has anything they want to talk about, Trek-wise, non-Trek-wise, you see a movie in the last couple of weeks, throw it out there. We'll be down to talk.
What you had for breakfast, literally anything.
Yeah, this is supposed to be like a way to get to know us in a more casual way, see us in a more relaxed setting. We're pretty relaxed on Trek Live every week, I think. But I'm gonna make an effort to be even more kind of laid back, just chill, you know.
Yes.
So the first thing I really want to ask you, Dan, because we haven't really talked about it, and some of this stuff's pretty old. Some of this is like
way old, yeah.
Maybe even 3 weeks old. Adam's asking what our favorite colors are.
Buddy the Elf, what's your favorite color?
Yeah, I'll talk about whatever. Blue is my favorite color. I'm a Titans fan. It's got to be blue.
I'm wearing my favorite color right now. It's blue is all over Trek Live. I mean, it's it
gives it away.
Yeah.
We're both blue guys for sure.
Yes.
So that, I guess the big thing that we really haven't talked about much is the secret scene that came out for I guess that was going to be at the tail end of the finale, where whatever happened to Georgiou reveal. And it turns out, just as a quick summary, if anybody doesn't remember, which is impossible, of course, if you're in this channel, I'm sure you've watched it a dozen times and know exactly what we're talking about. But Georgiou's hanging out on Kronos. We heard the Blue Man group. She's hanging out on Kronos, running some kind of a strip joint. Seems like with Orion dancers, I'm sure doing other stuff too. And she gets recruited by a Section 31 agent who's designed to disguised as a Trill. Some pretty neat stuff, some cool stuff. So what did you think when you first saw it, Dan?
30 seconds to a minute in, I was like, this feels like Section 31. This just does. And then it did, like they revealed the badge and everything. But I think it's a good direction, and I've always liked Section 31.
And like for the whole season, through the whole first season, that Section 31 was going to have to pop up somewhere. The black badges were something that people really talked a lot about back, and I think it was Context is for Kings.
Yeah.
It was the only time we ever saw them. So it's been much speculated about, and if you think about it, Section 31's been really present in like recent Trek. You know, the very, very end of Enterprise, like the most recent televised Trek before Discovery. In the last handful of episodes at the end of season 4, there's Section 31 stuff happening. Star Trek Into Darkness there's some Section 31 stuff in that. So there's been a lot of Section 31 in recent new Trek. So I find that interesting.
Yeah.
It's something that Deep Space Nine introduced and has really kind of caught on, and people are interested in. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do with it. I'm open to it. I'm interested to see how dominant a force it is in season 2. I have a feeling that it's going to be a pretty big deal because they announced the casting of the guy that we saw in that scene, Alan Van Sprang, I think is his name. I wrote down in my notes, and I can barely read my own handwriting. But he plays Leland, who's the guy we see in the scene, and they kind of made all indications are that he's a pretty substantial role in season 2. So that leads us to think, I'm sure that Section 31 is going to play a pretty big role in what's coming, which is curious. Like I said, I'm open to it, but I don't know that I wasn't necessarily like clamoring for a season about Section 31. So I'm curious to see like how they do it and how much of a driving force in the season it's going to be, or if it's going to be a kind of a subplot that keeps Georgiou involved somehow and kind of gets rolled in.
For me, I've got 2 points that I'd like to make. One, this could fix the timeline for Discovery. Like, they could just be like, oh, it's Section 31. They just covered everything up. That's why we haven't heard it since. Second, I am hesitant, just like you are, with Section 31, but I was also hesitant about the Mirror Universe. Yeah. So to me, I'm a little bit more reassured, but still kind of on my toes as well. So.
Yeah, we were both kind of in the same boat with Mirror Universe, and we've talked about this a lot on Trek Live in the episodes leading up to when we got to the Mirror Universe, and then once we were there was a lot of, I think, on our part, like, not necessarily like negativity surrounding the idea of it, but a little nervous about it because it's kind of similar to Section 31. It's not in a whole lot of Trek. Like the percentage of episodes overall that it's featured in, is pretty small overall, but it feels like something that's been done a lot, especially in recent Trek. Like I said, with Section 31, it feels like it's been covered quite a bit. So they're kind of similar in that mindset for me, where I'm like, I like the ideas of them. I like a lot of what those things have brought forward. Like I like a good number of the Mirror Universe episodes. I like a lot of the episodes that feature Section 31. But I also get nervous about overcooking, like going too often to the same well. So it's going to be interesting. I agree with you though, like seeing how they did use the Mirror Universe and the way that they kind of added some new layers to it and some new feels to it. Like it wasn't just kind of what I was worried about, I guess, is that it was going to be a lot of tropes and a lot of, stereotypical.
Yeah, he's got a scar on his face and he's wearing black. Yeah,
exactly. I thought, I was worried that, and I shouldn't have been because I should have had more confidence.
Yeah,
I was a pretty optimistic guy about the show. Anybody knows me, but my deep feeling of like, oh man, do we really have to go there? That's kind of what was behind some of that ambivalence towards the Mirror Universe. And a lot of the same feelings are there with Section 31, where it's kind of mixed. It's like, but my experience with Mirror Universe and seeing that they didn't just fall into that trap of exploring all that stuff over and over again tells me that I should trust the writers and trust the showrunners to, if they're going to go back to these things and explore older ideas that we've seen before, that they're going to add new things and make it fresh and interesting. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, everybody in the chat, we have a decent little crowd here with Adam, Thad, and Rob.
Good to see everybody. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for dropping by on this impromptu extra episode here. But let us know what you think about the Section 31 idea. Like, are you fond of the idea of kind of having this be a thing in season 2 and moving forward, or are you nervous about it, or do you hate it? Like, anything's fair game. We're curious.
So does that mean that there was Section 31 officers on Discovery? Because there was some crew members that had the black badges.
Yeah, I think it implies, and I've seen a lot of speculation on Twitter about how that could be, and how, were they watching Lorca? Were they?
Yeah,
Lorca
did they know?
somehow?
Was Section 31 involved in that whole deal?
Yeah, I mean, it raises a lot of interesting questions, because you're right. There were Section 31 people on the Discovery somehow, for some reason.
Yeah.
Guarding the corridors, from what I remember. Like, as the inmates with Burnham were boarding the ship and coming out of the shuttle bay, they're walking around, and one of the prisoners says, "What's with the black badges?" And they're kind of just like lining the corridor with phaser rifles in hand. So were they just kind of there to guard the spore drive, or who knows? Like, there's all kinds of interesting stuff. Special guest star Pete.
Pete cameo.
Yeah, I'm hoping that there's an opportunity here to go back and maybe explore what that all meant. I'm hoping that wasn't just a drop in and that they never kind of go back. I'd love to know, like, what were they doing on the ship? Like, was it Lorca? Were they there not coincidentally, but were they there independently because of the spore drive and just monitoring that situation? But that's a good point that I actually hadn't heard, that I hadn't thought of, that you made, about how, if Section 31's involved in a big way, that could certainly, they could use them in some way to lose the spore drive, lose some of the advanced technology that we're seeing in the show that we don't see later on. Somehow Section 31 could, make that stuff go away. If they're going to be involved in a big way. I hadn't thought of that, but they have the showrunners have, in their appearances at conventions and such, spent a lot of time talking about, we know we're going to fix things are going to make sense in the end.
Right. So
they clearly have a plan, and Section 31 seems like it fits the bill for something like that. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be really cool. I love Discovery, as anybody who watches us knows, and I'm pumped and excited to see what they have in store. There's a whole list of things that we kind of want to talk about here.
Yes, there is.
Some other news besides just that scene. But one thing I just want to throw your way, that I didn't hear you mention earlier before we started recording or streaming, is that they did announce I think it was right around the same time. I think it was that same panel, actually, that season 2 is going to be 13 episodes.
Yep.
Are you happy about that? Do you not care? Does it not matter at this point how many episodes that it's going to be? Are you disappointed?
I think that it's fine. To me, just watching through Discovery, there was some episodes that were like, okay, maybe that wasn't necessary, or maybe that was too long, or was that filmed later on to kind of fill in the gaps. So I think I like that the story, like the showrunners are still experimenting with length and stuff like that. So I think it's fine. That's not big on my high priority list of things to
get hung up on.
It's
hard for me to have too much of an opinion on it, because we don't know what the story is. We don't know how it's all going to play out. I'm a fan of the idea of, we talked about this with episode lengths. Episodes should be as long as they need to be.
Yes.
Some episodes are 39 minutes. Some episodes are 52 minutes. That's fine as far as I'm concerned. It's as long as the episode's sharp and they tell a full story, and
it's the same thing with the season too. I feel.
Same thing with the season.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, if the season needs 13 or 15 or 18, then this format of being on a streaming service and not being constrained by network standards and having to fill a schedule and needing this number of episodes, and I like that this offers them the flexibility to say, not every season might not be the same length. So we'll see.
Rob makes a great point. He says 13 quality episodes is better than 26 mixed quality episodes.
Absolutely.
Very much agree.
not going to talk about it a whole lot right here because we're going to talk about it over the weekend on Trek Live. But I just watched the entirety of season 1 of Enterprise, which is a pretty decent season. I always enjoy it, but that's 26 episodes that are not all necessarily high quality.
Yes.
You know, and they're not all bad, but there's a lot of kind of blah stuff. Like that kind of falls in that middle range of mushy, like, yeah, it's passable, it's decent, it adds to the color of the show, I guess, but it's not necessarily bringing a lot of like big dramatic stuff forward. It's not really advancing the story other than just giving us more time with characters, giving us different kinds of stories. So Discovery in this new television landscape is, you know, not aiming for that kind of storytelling. They're aiming for like high propulsion, like straight line, beginning, middle, and an end, one story kind of drive to it. So if with that being said, I'm fine with 13 episodes. I'd rather it be 13 needed, strong, you know, connected episodes than 26 kind of meandering, mix in week and blah and great episodes.
Yeah.
So I'm totally fine with it as of now. You know, ask me when the season's over. You know, what it all looks like, and even this season indicated. You know, there are episodes even in the first season of Discovery that I would maybe make a case are a little maybe on the lightweight side, especially in the back half. I think the second to last episode, the War Without, the War Within, feels kind of like a connected episode. Like it's an episode that's just kind of connecting what's past this prologue and Will You Take My Hand. It's not a bad episode. I had it kind of in the middle of the pack. I think I'd give it a C+. There's a lot of good stuff in it. There's some great moments in it. It does advance the story to some extent, but it feels thinner than some of the stories that we get everywhere else in the season, really, especially in that back half, you know, compared to what's past this prologue and even Vaulting Ambition, which you and I have kind of mixed feelings on.
About,
there's big stuff happening in those episodes with the story really moving forward, where the War Without, the War Within is a little more expository and maybe a little more thin on like big picture moving the story forward. So even with 15, they, you know, still had that a little bit. So so not a lot of strong opinions there on 13, but it's out there, and I've seen a lot of people talking about it, and I'm sure there are people who are disappointed because they just want more content, which I certainly understand, but I felt the need to touch on it and get our thoughts out there on that. Rob is asking where I got my Star Trek movie posters that are on my wall. They are from a website called Bye Bye Robot, which I highly recommend. I actually also have the posters for the TNG movies. I just haven't hung them yet because of any frames, and these frames are not the easiest things to come by. They're unusually sized, and so there will be more posters on my back wall in short order, hopefully.
That's good.
But Bye Bye Robot has a lot of really cool stuff. They have these posters for the first 10 Star Trek movies. They have really cool pictures of the ships. Some of them are like more traditional, you know, just beauty shots of the ship. Some of them are really like abstract art where you can kind of barely see the ship. It's kind of like just an outline of it. Some really cool, interesting stuff. So I highly recommend that. Bye Bye Robot. I'll tweet a link.
Not
later.
sponsored.
Not sponsored, no. But well liked and respected here on Trek Live. Yep. Cool. What else do you have on your agenda, Dan? You had a couple things that I know you wanted to.
Do we want to stick with Discovery news, or do we want to just jump around a little bit, or?
Let's stick with Discovery for right now. I think. Like, what's the next big piece of Discovery thing that you have?
Let's see if I can do this right here. No, I guess I'm giving a hint of what's okay. This kind of switched up, little producery stuff going on. This is TrekCore. That's kind of my news site that I like to stick to. Links in the description. But we have the casting for Captain Pike. And I think that I think they took a page out of the Kelvin timeline, because to me, he just looks very similar to Captain Pike, and I always appreciate the looks. I haven't seen any of his stuff. I don't really know him. I'd love to see his audition. But yeah, we have a new Captain Pike. We have a new captain.
We do. Yeah, I'm really happy with this. I don't know anything about the guy, the actor. I haven't seen. I think that the big credit to his name that I think a lot of people pointed to is I guess he's the lead on Hell on Wheels, which is a show on AMC. I'm not sure if you've ever seen it or you're aware of it. It's like a Western that Kyle Meany is actually in. Chief O'Brien.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's a little Trek connection there. People who have watched that show and like that show are very excited about this, I'm sure. And I've seen some of them praise this casting. But yeah, he does kind of look like Jeffrey Hunter to me. And I've seen a lot of talk about that. Like, there's definitely a similar face there. So I think it's a good choice from appearances at least. We haven't seen the performance yet, so we don't really know like what the final result's going to be. But I think he's got the look. I think what this tells us, because of the nature of the actor, who's not necessarily a huge name or anything, but is a lead of a successful TV show that ran for like 5 or 6 seasons and has a decent name for himself. That I think Captain Pike might be a reasonably important character in season 2 that we might see for a few episodes. Which is an open question: is how large will the Enterprise and Pike and whoever else may or may not be on that ship? How large are they going to play into? Yeah, I mean, are we going to be spending a lot of time on the Enterprise? Are we spending time, flying aside the Enterprise on the Discovery? Like, it's going to be interesting. That's the thing that, obviously, shocker here. That's the question that I'm most intrigued by. Like, how is the Enterprise going to factor in to this? That's obvious and clear. But I'm excited about the casting. I was nervous about the idea of, like, and I'm not sure how you feel about this, now that, we have obviously Jeffrey Hunter in TOS and Bruce Greenwood in the Kelvin timeline and Anson Mount in Discovery. We've had 3 actors play Christopher Pike. Does that bother you? Do you care? Do you think that's good? Do you think that's bad? Like, where do you fall on?
I am not bothered by it. I would just like to see them stay true to the character, and I think they have so far. So I'm still on my toes about it, but I'm excited to see kind of which way they go with this character.
Yeah, I'm with you. I was skeptical about the recasting of the original characters in 2009, like before 2009 was really a thing, and there was talk that they were going to do that. I was certainly one of those fans that was like, not a naysayer, but just nervous about it. Like, man, they better get it right. Like, this is a big deal to recast those characters, and because it wasn't something Trek ever really did before. They kind of, for the most part, there's exceptions out there. Saavik is played by a couple different actresses, and there's a couple bit roles out there that different actors pop in and play the same role. It's not unheard of for different actors to play the same character in Star Trek, going back to the beginning of the movies. But it's something that I was nervous about up front, and then when I saw the final product in 2009, I was really impressed. I think even most people out there who might not be in love with the Kelvin timeline movies many of them would probably agree that the casting is not necessarily the issue. With those movies, people from what I've seen are largely really positive on the casting. So it's been proven that this can be done. And I think what you said is absolutely true. As long as they're true to the character, and that it's thematically in line with what we know about that character, it'll be a success.
Yep.
Yeah, Dad thinks he's a great choice, and everything I know, like, Dad, have you ever seen him? Did you watch Hell on Wheels? Have you seen any of that or anything else he's been in? I know he was in a Marvel show, Inhumans, I think only lasted 1 season recently. I think it's a Netflix show. I understand he had a role in that, but I haven't seen him in anything ever, so I don't know anything about his actual work. I just know what he looks like, and I think he looks like Pike. So, were you? How would you have felt if they say they cast Bruce Greenwood. Like if Bruce Greenwood was coming back, like
I like Bruce Greenwood, but it's I know that he was kind of a big name actor,
Yeah,
so they kind of would have to shell out some dough for that.
they
but
would.
but that's not an issue for me. I like him as an actor, but I'm not mad that they went a different direction with the casting choice.
Yeah, and I've had mixed feelings on this whole thing too, with using Kelvin timeline actors. I don't know what the right answer is. Is the right answer to kind of leave the Kelvin timeline actors in the Kelvin timeline to prevent any kind of confusion about that these things are kind of taking place in different universes, for different timelines. Just crossing over actors spell confusion and trouble. I don't know. I don't know how I would feel. But I think if they would have came out and announced, if they would have said, Spock and Pike are going to appear in Discovery and they're going to be played by Bruce Greenwood and Zachary Quinto. If that was the official announcement, I'd be like, oh, hell yes. Like I would have been excited by that.
Yeah.
But I also understand the resistance to that too.
Yeah.
So I'm not opposed to new faces playing these characters in this universe and to prevent any kind of confusion out there, especially given that Bruce Greenwood as Pike, people saw Bruce Greenwood play Pike die in the darkness.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. So, people who aren't as, up on, the
they
track.
would get confused, be like, "What? I thought he just died in the movies."
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he did, but this is a different time. It's
right, exactly.
That does make a great point, though. He said that wasn't going to happen without the CBS Paramount merger. So.
Yep. Which kind of I think is a fine transition maybe into not as much of a Discovery specific topic, but a good Discovery. This ongoing storyline that we have going on with a potential merger in play. Well, nice save. So it sounds like this might happen. It sounds like it's this Viacom CBS bringing everything back under one roof is something that is realistic, and it's been, I think this happened in 2006, the split. So it's been 12 years since they've all been under one roof. So for backstory, if anybody out here is unaware, which I'm sure everybody in this room right now is well aware of, Paramount Pictures, the film studio, owns the rights to Star Trek feature films, through motion picture, through Beyond, and anything else they're developing. It falls under the purview of that company, where CBS, the television network, owns the history of Star Trek on television, TOS, TNG, and so on up to Discovery, which, by all accounts, I mean, causes some frustration and some conflict, I imagine, on the business end of developing these things, and whenever there's any desire to crisscross things and borrow and use
accent
yeah, there are challenges that come into play. So the idea of having it all under one roof again does sound appealing. I know Dad's saying he'll believe it when the papers are signed, and these rumors have been going around for years that this is kind of in the works. It does. One thing that does give me some confidence that it may happen is I know, and it doesn't give me any joy to say this, I have nothing against Paramount Pictures. They've produced lots and lots of Star Trek content since I've been a baby. I love Paramount. But by all accounts, Paramount's kind of struggling along right now. A lot of their big movies have not been successful, and they're struggling. So they're in a position where like this would probably be beneficial, and it makes sense. Like the story makes sense that this is something that would eventually happen. So I think eventually it will happen. I hope. I think where there's smoke, there's fire, and I think there's no reason to doubt it will eventually happen. But I agree with you, Dad, that it's not something that there's a whole lot there until it's there and actually happening. But like for one example, real quick, I remember there was a story about Kelvin timeline novels being developed and even written in the years after '09. Like they were going to dive into that universe and further build it out with novels. And I think this merger, from what I remember, kind of threw a wrench in that, and those novels never came out. And I remember reading stories. I think that JJ and attorneys and everybody got in a big tit for tat over it. Like it was a big battle to make everything connect and make it actually happen. So there have been examples, I think, in recent years where this merger would have come in handy.
Mm-hmm. Well, now they're doing comic books.
Yeah.
Exactly. To me, I'm a little nervous of this because I don't want this to affect the Kelvin timeline at all in any way. So, and I don't want CBS to start juggling too many projects and then the content hurts. I'm just worried about that. But I also don't want the Kelvin timeline to go under with the studio. So I get I'm in kind of like a catch-22 feeling, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm with you. You and I are both Kelvin timeline fans. We're both pretty positive on the Kelvin timeline as a whole, and I think the Kelvin timeline is even more necessary now. Well, I guess depends on the way you think of it. Like if some would say that maybe the better direction to go in with Discovery on the air and running and taking place in the time that it does, maybe it's best to leave that era alone completely. But if you want to set your big budget motion picture stories in that time period, the Kelvin timeline is the place to do it. I think, to kind of keep it separated, the movie universe distinct from the TV show. So I am a fan of the Kelvin timeline, and I love those actors, and I would like to see more from the Kelvin timeline.
Yep.
I want to see a Star Trek 14 with those actors.
Yep.
And you're right. I would be afraid of what does this mean to that? Is that it? Like, is it done because new leadership and not wanting to go back to that? I think that's all an open question. I think there's a lot of open questions now with the whole direction of it as it stands without the merger. I don't know if you saw the story about. I guess Zachary Quinto said something about 3 different movie scripts kind of all being developed at once. And then kind of one of them is the Quentin Tarantino project, and one is Simon Pegg and Doug Young, who wrote Beyond, are supposedly writing a script for Quinto. And there's another team of writers out there. So I don't know. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if Zachary Quinto thinks that's what he knows and it's not true. I think maybe Simon Pegg came out and said that's not true, that he's not writing a script. Who knows? This is all way outside of our real knowledge. Like, we don't know what's going on behind closed doors in the studios and who's writing what. But lots of interesting possibilities. So I take it from your fish expressions that you're not fond of the idea of let's write 3 scripts at once. And
that's too many balls in the air. I don't like that idea. I mean, if they had to and a bunch of creative people working on them, and I don't know, that seems like that should be kind of way down the pipeline, and then you kind of cut it to one script and you focus on refining that, and then you move into production. And
that's certainly the traditional logical way that usually plays out. And what that almost tells me, like, what signal I kind of get from that, if that's true, that they're kind of developing 3 scripts at once, it's kind of like an uncertainty and a fear on their part of, like, where do we go? Like, they're kind of hedging their bets and not feeling real good about the direction, which is kind of scary. So that doesn't give me a whole lot of confidence either. If that's true, I kind of believe that it's not, based on what Simon Pegg said, although maybe Simon Pegg can't say that he's actually writing.
Or he doesn't want people to know that he's right. I don't know.
Yeah. It's an open question, and I think we'll find out soonish if there's Star Trek 4 in development, if it's going to be the Tarantino thing or if it's going to be something different.
Yeah.
Rob's asking a good question, pulling us back to Discovery, which is good. Do we think we'll see more of Harry Mudd in season 2, Kelpia, or wherever Saru's home planet is called?
Yep.
Do you think we'll do both of those things?
I don't think there'll maybe be a small thing with Harry Mudd. But I think the best bet, if I was a betting man, I would put my money on Saru and kind of developing that character.
I agree with that.
Because I feel like he's been such a hit online and with the fans. I think the showrunners might give a tip to kind of developing that character more. So,
yeah,
yep.
That could be. I might be misremembering, or my brain might be playing tricks on me. But I feel like I've seen Ted Sullivan specifically like respond to tweets on at least 2 or 3 or 4 occasions where people are asking, "Are we going to see, Saru's backstory like while season 1 was running?" And he would kind of respond, "Not this season." So whether or not he was, aware of any development for season 2, it struck me, and his responses to questions like that would strike me as a "we hear you" kind of thing. Like, it's something we're thinking about. That saying, he kind of doesn't want to see more mud in the
I think,
resolution.
I'm with that
I
on
would
that.
I would be content if we didn't see Harry Mudd again. If the next time we see Harry Mudd is in Mudd's Women in TOS, they kind of just leave it alone. I do think, Rob's saying that there is a book coming out. Rob is certainly the expert in the novel verse in this room, I think. But the next Discovery novel, which comes out in a few weeks, I think, is about Saru and his kind of backstory. So they're kind of teeing that up. I definitely agree with you, Dan. I think there's going to be a lot of Saru development on the way in season 2, and I think that's good. I'd love to see his planet, or at least learn more about his planet, and how that whole dynamic on that planet works, with Kelpians being a species of prey and Saru being the first one to get off the planet. So I think that'll happen. And anything else like that you think, or anybody else in the room, Rob, Dad, Adam, if you're still in here, things that you think we'll see in season 2?
Besides new director, or not new directors, but directors and people coming back to starting to build a alumni of Discovery production people.
I think it's true for sure. And we are going to talk about that. I forgot. That is something that I am curious to talk about. We know some directors.
Yeah, we can just jump in it now.
Season 2. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
So I think, one that I know, Frakes is obviously coming back.
Yes.
From a production standpoint, it would make sense that he's going to be doing a pretty early set of appearance recently, that he's seen the first few episode scripts, and I'm not in the production. I don't know how all this works, but I would imagine if he's seen the script for the first episode of the season, is kind of already in the works. As far as like what's happening, that would probably indicate that he's pretty early in the docket, and might be directing episode 2 or 3 or 4, somewhere in that range. So I think we'll see a follow-up to Despite Yourself from the Jonathan Frakes line of Star Trek directed episodes pretty early on in season 2.
Yeah,
really cool.
Which I think is a good move to bring in some kind of hype to the start of the second season and stuff like that. Yeah, for
sure. People get excited I know people were excited when they found out season 1 an episode, and people found out which episode it was. People wanted to know which episode was his, and same thing's going to happen again, I think. And especially because I think Despite Yourself, the one he directed, got a lot of kudos for its direction, and it was one of the fan favorite episodes, I think, towards the top end of the season for a lot of people. So a lot of excitement there. And I think Alex Kurtzman, one of the showrunners, is going to direct the pilot, or the premiere, right?
Yeah, premiere.
Yep. So that's going to be interesting. I know he's directed a couple of things. He's directed a movie. He directed a little drama a few years ago with Chris Pine that I don't remember the title of, but he also directed The Mummy, the new Mummy movie with Tom Cruise. That was a pretty colossal box office bomb, but he's got some experience directing.
Savage.
some big budget stuff.
And to me, like, nobody knows the short show better than the showrunners. So whenever I see them in the kind of production side of it, I'm like, more power to them. I'd love to see that.
Yeah. And there's some good conversation with Dad and Rob that I want to touch on in a second. But Adam's asking if we think we'll see like LeVar Burton or Robert Duncan McNeil, people who are veteran Star Trek actor directors.
Love to see them.
I would love to see them. I remember a story, I think, coming out a little while ago that they tried, and maybe Robert Duncan McNeil said at a convention or something that they tried to get him for season 1 and just wasn't available because I think him and Roxanne Dawson are the two directors from the Trek lineage that I think are probably the most active along with Frakes
Yes.
today. Like they're pretty involved with, like, you go on their IMDb's and you see they're directing, like, you know, big television, you know, popular television that's, you know, they're consistently working.
Yes.
So I think those two are names that you might see coming in the near future. I would think, if they want to tap into that resource of, you know, easy bait for fans to get excited when they see names like that coming on the directing roster.
That's asking if we think about Prime Lorca. I really want Prime Lorca to come back. I love Jason Isaacs. I don't know how feasible that is, but
I would love to see Prime Lorca. I would love to know more about what happened to him. They kind of just left it as he crossed over into the Mirror Universe when Mirror Lorca came to the Prime, and he must have died really quickly.
Yeah.
They kind of just left it at that, and that seems purposely vague to me. Like,
yes.
They didn't definitively say.
They just brushed over it really fast.
Yeah. That gives them lots of options. If they want to leave him dead because they're kind of moving on, and Jason Isaacs is moving on, and it's difficult to connect and they can't make it happen, then fine, you know. But if there's an opportunity to bring him in, I think it's very much in play. So you never know with this show, especially. There are a lot of twists and turns and unexpected things.
Yeah. Rob asked, any guest stars? Freaking Jeffrey Combs. Get him in into the casting room. Find a character, any character. He can do anything. Just bring him. I'd love to see him as an Andorian, but it's.
I was waiting. I wanted to see him as an Andorian last season.
Yeah.
I thought, but that is like fan servicey stuff that would make us very happy.
Yes.
I think maybe in hindsight, maybe it's a good move to like resist that urge early in the show, but
yeah.
It is something that I'm hoping that they do, because he's awesome, and it's another thing that is it's easy bait for the fans. Like, it's gonna get people excited if it's just to see him, because he's such a iconic face in Trek, you know, in Star Trek. So she's Rob's also asking about Cornwell. Do you think we'll see more of her? Jane Brooke is awesome, and I do think we'll see more. I think that's going to be a pretty consistently recurring character. I think that's going to be our admiral that we're kind of connected with in the show.
Hopefully not an admiral, but yeah.
No, hopefully not. I think she's too good for that. So yeah, I do think she'll be back. I think she'll be a recurring character all the way through. I hope. That's suggesting some other directors, David Livingston, James L. Conway, who are
veterans.
Veteran Trek, not actor directors, but big time directors, multiple time Trekkie award winning directors, both of them. If I'm going to put my nerd hat on, David Livingston is the man. He is. Go back and look at like classic lists of episodes from across the shows, and David Livingston's name factors very large in those lists. He's directed some major Star Trek classics, so I would be down to see him back. James L. Conway, who we shouted out on, I think, the last episode of Trek Live, the Earl Grey episode where they interviewed him. It was really, really good. Really smart guy, knows Trek really well. Directed a wide range of really good episodes. Love to see him come back too. That's suggesting some other Star Trek guest star royalty with Vaughn Armstrong, who played Admiral Forrest in Enterprise and like every other you possibly imagine. And Tony Todd, who is also awesome. We would love to see them both. That's the thing. Like, Star Trek's got such a long line of these like old guest stars that were such like iconic faces. Randy Oglesby, I think is his name, who played Degra in Enterprise, is another one that, like, if you go back and you watch like Deep Space Nine, especially, and Voyager, like that voice I can pick out like out of anywhere. And he's in a lot of Star Trek. He plays a lot of characters. So Star Trek's got this rich history of guest stars that they keep bringing back. And they're still working actors, and they're still good. And I think that's a resource that I'd like to see them tap into. I don't know if it's something you want to go back to too. I don't know if you make it like the who's who of old Star Trek guest stars.
Yeah, just one reunion episode where we just get everybody back. Just even if it's just a cameo, like just like a look or something, like with each other. Yeah.
Like in Starfleet headquarters or something with just a bunch of them playing admirals or something.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of cool. J.G. Hertzler has more
Yes.
it's another great one.
Oh yes, so many good actors.
So many of them.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, the possibilities are endless, and I think they showed by bringing Frakes in to direct and their references. They're not afraid of fan service. Like,
no, they're not.
On occasion, and I think they did a good job of not overdoing it. The show, I've seen people criticize the show, people who are more negative to the show, that they think it's too fan servicey, and I think I disagree with that. I think the show did a nice job of playing that game and using it to its advantage in like small doses here and there. It's there, it's present, to balance out the aesthetic differences and stuff like that causes also consternation for people. So I'm fine with the way they've been doing it. I'm fine. I would be fine with them even doing maybe a little bit more, tapping into some of these resources we're talking about, directors, actors. We'll see. I'm hoping the show's around long enough, get a good 7-year run like the old shows.
To develop
so there's plenty of opportunities. Yeah, to develop their own bench, their own list of names that we talk about for the next 50 years. When Dan and I are old dudes still doing Trek Live in 50 years. We're talking back on these days like it's the golden years. Like, I'm hoping that's where we're heading. Keep your fingers crossed. This is why Discovery needs to be a success. Like, people need to root for Discovery because it won't be the last of New Trek. More New Trek will follow. If this is good. So real quick, there was one other piece of casting news today. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, but it's Tig Notaro. I think is cast as engineer Denise Reno of the USS Hiawatha, I want to say. Hiawatha. No idea. I never saw her in anything. Excited people who are aware of her and maybe know her comedy, know some of her performances. I know she's in a show, One Mississippi, I think it's called. Not aware of it, have never seen it. But the other thing I was telling you, stream, she seems like a pretty big name, so I'm assuming she's got a reasonable role. But I remember in season 1, before season 1, they would announce these like guest star characters, and sometimes they were bigger roles than others. Just because they announce a guest star does not necessarily mean that it's going to be like this gigantic thing that is going to be a big deal. I remember some of the actors who played Klingons got this kind of treatment, like a big rollout in a big Twitter announcement with a graphic and everything, and they're not necessarily characters that we saw a whole lot of. So we'll see. The description of the character is that she's the chief engineer.
Which I like, because like I feel like she's gonna be like, with her comedy background, it might be like a quirky engineer or something like that. So I'm excited to have her on.
Absolutely, me too. And that's the other thing. Just because she starts on the USS Hiawatha does not mean that that's where she's going to end up.
Exactly.
As we saw in Discovery, they announced Saru as the science officer on the Shenzhou. He became the first officer of the Discovery. So there's no telling where these characters are going to end up. I think they're going to introduce them as, this is what they are when they begin, not necessarily where they end. So never know. She might be our chief engineer on the Discovery before long, for all we know. Or she might be a 1 episode pop in, pop out kind of guest star.
Yeah. We don't know.
We don't know. There's a lot we don't know. But it's going to be fun to dissect all this stuff. I mean, I'm sure there's in the next couple of weeks, months, as I know, I think season 2 starts filming next week. I've seen. So I think it's unavoidable that there's going to be some developments and some news
Yeah, I
over
think
the next
so.
couple of months
Yeah.
about what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's when I think last time around when season 1 went into production, things started rolling. Stuff started trickling out a little bit here, a little bit there.
Slowly but surely.
Things started ramping up as production got started, and so I think we have a lot of good stuff in store.
Yep.
Yeah, that Sam Bartholomeos, I think I just said his name, maybe, as Ensign Connor. They put him out there.
Yeah.
He's going to be like a regular, and he was gone like snap of a finger. So you just don't know. You don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But Dad has seen her stand up, he says.
Okay.
It's funny, but I've never seen her act. So just throw that there.
I think that about covers it.
Yeah, I think that was good. We went about a little less than an hour, and I think that's probably about right for these things.
Yep.
You never know what could come in the future. We might go longer. We were a little even more structured than we sometimes might be with this because we have like a given thing we kind of want to talk about. Discovery. There are times we might pop onto this and have literally nothing planned, and you might pop onto this and hear us talking about who knows what. Sometimes you might see a beer in hand. Maybe are we allowed to do that? I don't know. Real casual. Who knows? That's the whole concept of this show. We like the idea to kind of do whatever and not feel constrained by who we're streaming. It has to be official and tidy. But this is a warm up that might lead to more. You never know.
Yep.
What we'll do.
Yes.
Yeah. So we will be back on Saturday at I think our normal time.
Early morning. 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific. I don't know what time for our guest host, but yes.
Yeah, our guest host is actually in the room, and I apologize to our guest host because I may have said a different time to him. So I will touch base with you very shortly, Rob, just to make sure that we're all clear on that. But Rob is our special guest. We did announce that on Twitter. We're going to be talking about. You want to share?
First officers.
We are going to be talking about first officers.
Yes. Give some homage to the captains.
Yes. Yeah. We're going to be sharing our favorites. We're going to pick. Each of us are going to pick our own favorite about why they're our favorite. And we'll touch on everybody in time as the conversation gets going. Our goal is to have a little conversation about each of the Star Trek first officers as we go through. But I'm hoping to put emphasis on who's our pick, who's our favorite, and why, and kind of have that be the driving force of the conversation. But Rob's going to help us do that, and we're definitely really looking forward to that. That's part of another one of our goals, not only Trek After Dark, but maybe have another face here and there a little more often in year 2.
Yep.
And we had Jordan a few weeks ago talking about season 1 of TNG, and Rob's going to be on this week to talk about first officers.
Yep.
So, hope to see everybody there on Saturday.
Yes. All right. You guys know the drill. Same deal. Discussion doesn't have to stop here, and it won't. Come over to Twitter, our Discord channel, Facebook. We'll see you guys this weekend. Thanks for watching.
See you, everybody. Thanks for stopping by.